And KIDO Talk Radio, blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Let's go to our friend Phil Kerpen of American Commitment. Phil, good to have you with us.
Hey, great to be with you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let's take a look at the year that was in energy and in healthcare and everything else. In comparison, how did we do last year?
Oh, I think we did well. I mean, I'm not tired of winning yet or anything like that, but there were a lot of victories for the American people last year. And, through most of the year, it looked like Congress wasn't going to get much done, and we were going to have to be satisfied with what was going on in the executive branch. And they did a really good job of rolling back a lot of the Obama regulations. And you'll remember early in the year, President Trump did an executive order, said he would get rid of 2 old regulations for every 1 new one that's finalized. At the end of the year, they announced that they had actually gotten rid of 22 old regulations for every 1 new one. So they over-delivered that promise quite a bit. And, of course, they got a lot of judges confirmed, including Neil Gorsuch, to the Supreme Court. And they scaled back the national monument designations to open up a lot of resources for development. And they did a lot of other positive things kind of throughout the federal government in terms of the things that the executive branch can control. Congress tried and failed multiple times on Obamacare, and it looked like we weren't going to get much done legislatively until they got the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act done, which really was a huge victory, not one, but 3 huge victories, I would say, because we got badly needed tax reform, both for businesses to be much more competitive internationally, which is going to make the U.S. economy much more competitive, allow wages to grow, allow job growth to be much stronger, and for individuals. There's very broad-based tax relief for the middle class in this bill, and especially for families with children with a vastly expanded, doubled, in fact, child credit. But on top of the tax reform, that was sort of the centerpiece of the bill that got all the attention, they finally got a big accomplishment on health care because the individual mandate penalty tax was repealed in this bill. And they got a big victory on energy in this bill because ANWR, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which has a vast oil resource, it's estimated to be about 10 billion barrels that's been locked up, it was originally designated for energy development in 1980, and yet the left has been able to stymie us for 37 years from actually being able to move forward with selling the leases to get that production started, and that was included in this bill as well. And when it comes online and it's developed, it's expected to produce about 1.5 million barrels a day, which could replace every ounce of Saudi Arabian oil that comes to the United States. And so it's a very, very meaningful resource there that's going to be greenlit in this bill. And so on top of all the other things that had really gone well, I thought, in the executive branch and with the judicial appointments, at the end of the year we got sort of this big bang of accomplishment finally from a Congress that hadn't done much, and they sort of saved the whole year in my judgment because they did not 1 but 3 really big things in that bill.
Phil Kerpen joining us from American Commitment. So do you think that we'll eventually be free of Saudi Arabia, or will we continue to buy oil from them because they share our national security or strategic interests?
Well, typically, it depends where you are regionally and that kind of thing. The way the supply chains are, most of the East Coast is still going to be imported oil, although, a lot of it comes from the North Sea. Some of it comes from the Middle East, of course. The Alaskan production will probably come down to the West Coast is what typically happens. Or now that exports are legal, some of that oil might go to Asia as well. The important thing is this, Kevin. If there were a supply disruption from the Middle East for geostrategic reasons, let's say there's a regional conflict again or something like that, we would have the domestic resource to sort of weather that storm without a huge spike in our prices. So it's not so much that we would stop importing if we developed more American resources, but it's that we would have the flexibility if conditions changed to be able to rely on domestic resources instead of having a big price spike. And even more significantly, it means that the OPEC countries wouldn't have the power to drive up prices when they think it's in their economic interest to do so because they wouldn't control enough of global capacity. And so it's not as simple as you increase American production and that means that imports drop, although that might happen depending on where the relative price points are and so forth. But from a national security perspective and an energy security perspective, what's really important about having the domestic production capacity is that in the event of a disruption, you have those domestic resources. In the event of a national emergency, you have those domestic resources, and it blunts the value of the sort of the economic weapon as well. If other countries try to drive the price up, you can ramp up domestic production to counteract that.
Phil Kerpen joining us from American Commitment on KIDO Talk Radio. So let's go into the elephant in the room. Possibly the Iranians are trying to rebel again. It seems to happen every 8 or 9 years. Could that cause some type of disruption?
I don't think so. Not if it stays as what it has been, political demonstrations. I don't see anything indicating that it would disrupt oil supplies. And Iranian exports are still controlled, and a lot of the sanctions have been lifted, but they're still not a major player in world prices. And so I don't expect that we would see any impact in price at the pump unless the conflict there kind of spills over into a wider regional conflict where other countries get pulled in and that kind of thing, and then you might. But based on what we've seen so far, I wouldn't expect an impact from it.
And then again, of course, you've got the Saudis, and I know we're getting a little out of the wheelhouse here, Phil, but then you've got the Saudis who and the Iranians don't get along, and who knows? It's good to know, though, that we're going to be secure in our own energy reserves. We were talking earlier about the days of the oil embargo, about how OPEC used to have a stranglehold on us. So these are changing times.
Yeah, we really over the last few years saw something pretty remarkable because the Saudis really dropped the price through the floor. And you remember prices were very high. We were paying $4 at the pump, all that kind of thing. And barrel price was over $100. And the Saudis basically, they convinced the other OPEC countries, look, let's drive all our swing capacity up. Let's produce like crazy, drive the price way down. We'll take a short-term hit, but we'll basically destroy all of our North American competitors. And this was their strategy. They thought that North American competitors, because of the technology and the costs associated with hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, all the things we were doing, they thought, look, if they drive the barrel price down to $40, they'll basically destroy all their North American competition. Then they can raise the prices back up, and they can have destroyed their competitors. And it completely backfired on them. I mean, completely. There were tough times for North American producers. Clearly, it wasn't like the boom years, but they were able to economize. They were able to use technology even more effectively, and they were able to, hit break even and even be profitable at these much, much lower barrel prices. And they were able to sort of weather the storm of that much better, in fact, than the OPEC countries that had done it. So you had these OPEC countries who drove the price down dramatically as part of a strategy to destroy their North American competitors, and they ended up hurting themselves much more than they hurt us. And they basically wrecked their country's budgets fiscally, which were highly dependent on that revenue, and they created severe instability in Venezuela in particular, almost total economic collapse in Venezuela as a consequence of that strategy. And in the U.S., we had a little bit of a dip in the industry, no question, but I would say, weathered it much better than any of the countries that tried to do it to us. And so it completely backfired on them, and it ended up damaging them very badly. And I think sort of the lesson there for them is that, they're not the most efficient, lowest cost producers anymore, at least not when you consider sort of the fiscal impacts and everything else that happens when they drive down the price. And so really, when you talk about sort of the revolution in production in North America and what we've been able to do through technology, we've really defanged OPEC as a consequence of having all of the energy production we now have in America and Canada.
Phil, how do you see the new year?
Well, it's going to be a pretty interesting year. Obviously, they've got a huge confrontation here over the next couple of weeks over the bill to fund the government, and Democrats are threatening to shut down the government if they don't get amnesty for the so-called Dreamers, and we're going to see if the president holds firm on that. Of course, he wants funding for the border wall, which the Democrats do not want to do. And so, we're going to have this confrontation over government spending and possibly over immigration here over the next month or two. And then the big question, I think, becomes, what is the president and the congressional leadership's legislative priority for 2018? Do they want to circle back to health care? Mitch McConnell says they don't. Do they want to try to do something on welfare reform, which is what Paul Ryan has said? Or is it going to be what the president seems to be suggesting, which is a major infrastructure package that he would try to make bipartisan by appealing to Democrats? And so, I don't know. I mean, we've got a limited capability of affecting that sort of as outside groups. Some of that's just going to be the strategic decisions that the leaders make. And, the next month or two is really going to be all about funding the government and probably, doing something or nothing on immigration. But then after that, I don't know kind of where everyone's attention is going to turn. The one thing I'm really focused on for this year that I would really like to see happen is to finally have a Senate vote on the REINS Act, the regulations from the Executive in Need of Scrutiny Act. That's the bill that would require Congress to vote to approve all major new regulations before they could take effect. And this is something Republicans have been supporting really throughout the Obama years. And now the president has changed parties, and so you might think, well, now Republicans would be against that because they want the Republican president to have a free hand on regulation. But Republicans still seem to be supporting it. And they passed it in the House already this Congress, and they passed it out of committee in the Senate. And I'd really like to see a Senate floor vote on that, because I think it would expose the Democrats who claim that, President Trump is a dictator and he's abusing power and all this kind of stuff, because when it actually comes to taking power back from the executive branch, I suspect most Democrats in Congress still don't want to do that, because they still, at the end of the day, trust the regulators and the bureaucrats to make all the decisions over our lives, and they don't want to be politically responsible for actually voting on all that stuff. So I think that would be a really interesting and an informative vote to have in the Senate. So that's going to be our priority at American Commitment this year, is trying to push for a vote on that.
Phil Kerpen, how can people get a hold of you?
AmericanCommitment.org is the website.
Phil, we appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, Kevin, have a good one. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Phil Kerpen joining us. Let's go to Cindy in Caldwell at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cindy.
Well, good morning, Kevin. I'm looking forward to you having a safe and blessed and a joyous New Year, a healthy one, too. So I really liked what the last gentleman was just saying about, the regulations and having our Congress be, involved, with that and pushing forward. Because, even the term, I don't even see the Democratic Party as defining themselves as that. What does that word mean? It really, to me, is nothing but a bunch of tyrannical progressive people who, contrary to be committed to America, it's just continually being divisive and dividing America and standing for, I don't sometimes know what, but I do know exactly what Raul Labrador stands for. And just because, the last gentleman, sometimes not everything gets into the press, because the press will put in, what they think is important. And, it's their papers. They have a right to do that, I suppose. But, I've been very involved thus far, and I can tell you that Raul Labrador has already been out there, because I'm on the phone talking to Idaho, and that's the individual person. That's the mom that's crying because she can't understand the work with Common Core, the math, or anything else, even to help her children. That's important to her, getting things going in education so that there is more choice, charter schools, et cetera. And for her, it's getting rid of Common Core. So people are out there talking about their taxes, talking about keeping Second Amendment rights. So there's a lot of issues, and we're just gleaning and gathering information from the people. It's always great to think, Mr. Whoever in California, you want a sanctuary city, but what are some of the other, I like the country song, the other California people thinking about? So we're in the gathering the information to see, not that Raul would not tell you exactly what it is that he stands for, because he's just that honest and will speak to you forthright. So we're just in the information stages of seeing also what people want, but he's out there with his platform. Call his office, and you'll find out exactly, or go to his website, and you'll know exactly what Raul Labrador stands for.
All right, Cindy, thank you for the call.
Well, thank you, Kevin. It's nice to hear I call it your real voice. Every time I turn on the radio, it's like, is this Kevin, or is this like, this is not a show today. But anyway, glad you're back, Kevin. It was a little bit mysterious. You just sort of disappear into the night. But, yes, I got to hear Lars Larson. Oh, yes, I am so blessed about that one.
Well, thank you. And we will be having Lars on once a week with us. And He's an active guy in the West, and we look forward to. I've known him for years. So
they actually let him into the state of Washington. It was the one conservative show I could pull up when I was there. So Yahoo for Lars Larson coming on board. So have a blessed, safe day, Kevin.
And you, Cindy, take care.
I sure will. Bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, has CNN crossed the line when it comes to being pro-pot? We'll share that story with you next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. And one of the things that I really love about this program is that we disagree and we agree to disagree. Whether it's on the subject of marijuana, whether it's on the subject of, really, I think just marijuana we basically disagree on. There are a lot of people that think that marijuana would be great here in the Treasure Valley. And, a lot of people from California that say, look, we had, medical marijuana legal. Now in California, it's legal to smoke marijuana, recreationally. In fact, the show on CNBC, The Prophet, where you have Marcus Lemonis, he's sitting there saying, he's doing a special where we're, talking about, the industry of pot. It's illegal. If there was a way to legalize medical marijuana in Idaho, where we could make sure that we didn't have people shopping for doctors and I've got some anxiety, I need some weed, I'd be in favor of that. But usually it's a gateway. It's a gateway to, legalizing recreational marijuana. And my thought is the federal government said it's a no-no, yet we continue on. Well, at one time in my life, I had an opportunity to do some stuff with CNN. In fact, it was a highlight because, remember, this is before Fox News. CNN was the standard. It was the news, right? And one of the great things about Donald Trump, among the many great things about our beloved president, is the whole idea of, calling out CNN as fake news. So those of you that stayed up and you didn't go to the baked potato or have a baked potato on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, maybe you did what I did, and I went to bed at 9:30 out of protest over the death of Guy Lombardo. To me, New Year's Eve has never been the same since, God rest his soul, Guy Lombardo was taken from us. And that is a sincere statement. I miss Guy Lombardo and everything else. In fact, we could go on and on. So I'm going to paint the picture for you. So New Year's, they're in Denver, Colorado. Here's a CNN reporter. Now, she's got a bong. Now, if you don't know what a bong is, and I really don't know, but I'm looking at this video here. She has a bong, and connected to the bong is a gas mask. That's right, a gas mask. And all of a sudden, she's describing what she's going to do. Now, inside the bong with the gas mask is, let her describe this. And actually, here's a woman that, let's see if her description does it justice on KIDO Talk Radio.
Mask with me so I wouldn't, get that contact high. But look at what's on the other end of the gas mask. Yes, a bong. And of course, they couldn't stand to see a bong that didn't have any cannabis in it. So you actually put it in the bong, you filled it up. Yeah. And you don't want it, you packed it. Okay, so you're going to, now what? Now you're going to celebrate a little New Year's early or what? To be honest with you, I've never hit one. Oh, right. Okay. I don't think this is really what a gas mask is used for, but wow.
So here we have it in Denver, Colorado, at one time a conservative state. You have this guy, this marijuana boy, putting on a gas mask. You have the CNN reporter lighting up the bong and him inhaling it. Well, you're going to say, what's wrong with that? Find out next. 8:27, our time here at KI. And we do appreciate our friends at American Revolution Vodka. This portion of the program, the American Impact segment, brought to you by them. We appreciate a local company employing veterans and, of course, veterans sponsoring and creating that company. So good for them, and we thank you for their service. So here we have it. Now, regardless of what you think, maybe you're a dope smoker, maybe you want to legalize the weed, maybe you've watched Bill and Ted too many times, or Cheech and Chong, and I know those are dated references, or Jay and Silent Bob, and you love the weed, but do we really need an anchor or an anchorette engaging in an illegal federal act? Because this is against federal law.
Okay. This is New Year's Eve Denver
this
style,
is legal
everybody.
in Colorado. I know.
Okay. Oh, boy.
I'm moving to
Legal.
Colorado.
It is very legal. Wow. But so, we are making our...
Now, back in my day, I would urge that all of those people would be stuffed, cuffed, haven't given a haircut and a flea dip. But the idea that we're having people smoking weed because it's legal in Colorado, I would urge, if Jeff Sessions, former Senator, now Attorney General Sessions, if you are listening now, sir, now is the time to send the federal troops in to these law-breaking states and weed out, that's right, weed out the weed purveyors and take them down. Bring in the pesticide. Heck, we'll raise money for pesticide to destroy the promiscuous pot-growing plants and, again, make Colorado and the western states that have legalized marijuana great again. We'll talk about that next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Voters approved the permissive law, and state officials hope fully legalizing the drug will disrupt the illicit market and bring in $1 billion in tax revenues. But since Colorado became the first state to legalize recreational pot, opponents like Chelsea Clark say problems abound.
We've seen when that use increases is things like the traffic fatalities increasing, the use, obviously, of youth and adults increasing. We also look at things like ERs and hospitalizations and homelessness.
California's new law does not permit public smoking, and police officers say they're on the lookout for impaired drivers. In Los Angeles, Marianne Rafferty, Fox News.
So there we have it. So California embraces legalized weed, but you can't smoke it in public. And by the way, and maybe we should reach out to some of our friends in Denver when we're looking at some of the parks in Denver that have become just, well, I don't know how to say this diplomatically, smelly, like stinky parks. And that's one of the things. You can always tell someone who smokes marijuana because they stink. More on the stinky marijuana from California coming up. But first,
Melania and I want to wish every American a very happy new year. Our country is great. Our country is strong. We're doing things that nobody thought possible.
And there we have it. The president wishing all of us a happy new year. Joining us now, our great friend John Decker, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Happy New Year, John.
Happy New Year to you too, Kevin.
Well, the president is rolling today. I think this is the most tweets I've seen from him in quite some time. He's starting 2018 with a bang.
Yeah, he's back at it, right? I mean, he's already back in town, and I think the first tweet came around the 4 o'clock hour, and he hasn't stopped since then, tweeting on a variety of subjects, including the New York Times, which now has a new publisher, and now he's urging or advising the New York Times to get impartial journalists of a much higher standard. And he is also urging the Justice Department in a tweet to prosecute the former aide to Hillary Clinton, Huma Abedin, for, in his words, disregarding basic security protocols. So the president, unusual for a president to suggest a prosecution by his own Justice Department, but that's exactly what the president is doing this morning.
Well, it's odd when you think about the president. He's also urging people to investigate Hillary Clinton. Philosophically, is it strange that we almost have, you have your pro-Trump media and your anti-Trump media? Or is this just the roles reversed when President Obama was in office, or has something changed here?
I think it's a little changed. Yes, in the time of President Obama, you had MSNBC, for instance, very favorable coverage, particularly in that first year. I don't think you saw anything negative about President Barack Obama in that first year for MSNBC and its coverage. But this is a little bit different. I think that, if you flip on MSNBC or CNN, sometimes I'm surprised by the sort of tenor of their reporting as it relates to President Trump. Not that you need to go out and defend the president, which is not, the job of news organizations, but it seems sometimes with the sort of what the panels that they've put together, like they're specifically going after the president, and that's unfortunate.
Well, then you have other people, and I guess this was the same with, we can go back to Bill Clinton and others that were, tenaciously defend the president as well. It's what is it? There's a pro-Trump media outlet, Trump TV, or not Trump TV, but it's like a website or something of that nature. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's odd, though, that you have, maybe I've just been removed from national politics so long that you have just, again, it's like Alabama versus Clemson. It seems to me.
I watched that game last night. I guess you did too. You have the advantage, of course, of being 2 hours earlier in terms of the time zone, so you can watch that whole thing without having to worry about staying up too late. But in any case, what you have with this president is a president that's not afraid of breaking protocols, and he does it in just about every aspect of this presidency, and it's something that over the course of this past year we've gotten used to.
Speaking of getting used to, John, I guess John's gone. We'll never get used to how those special people come into our lives and then leave our lives. Well, what do we do now? Tom in Nampa, thanks for your patience. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Tom.
Hello. Well, Happy New Year. Wait a minute. Let me shut the door here.
Sure. It's Tom the Republican.
Barking. Pardon?
It is Tom the Republican.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, you're talking about this marijuana. As a former Californicator who's moved to Idaho, all I can say is I'm glad to be out of that nutty state. Even before they legalized it, it was just getting to be really pretty bad. Last spring, I went to Texas, and I took the train back, and the first thing I smelt when I got off the train and switched trains in Los Angeles was marijuana smoke. So people are always pushing the envelope on this, and they think they're going to stop public pot smoking. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen because you go into the parks, you smell it everywhere, and when it's growing, it stinks. And a little town that I had a place up in the hills there out of Redding, it's been taken over so bad by the marijuana growers that the crime has gone up. So they think that they're going to bring in $1 billion of revenue. They're going to have $10 billion of headaches as a result of this. But I guess it was bound to happen, and so I hope here in Idaho that you're eternally vigilant and don't even swallow this idea of medical marijuana, because that's the gateway to make it respectable. And then you look what you got in California now, and Oregon, and Colorado. And with this state growing so fast, what is the fastest growing state in the nation percentage-wise right now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I don't think you want to put out the doormat for any people coming in from the liberals from California that are going to be, supporting this, because what's going to happen is it's going to end up like Colorado. Look what it's done to Colorado. It's changed the whole political spectrum there. So I don't think you want that in Idaho. So I don't want any stinky people around here. Well, that's it. It's cigarette smoking is bad enough, but cigarettes. It kind of dissipates, if somebody's smoking 50 feet from you, it's kind of just dissipates. But marijuana smoke is I don't know, it just sort of clings and it permeates everything. And as a landlord, I don't know what I'm going to do in California now. I have several rentals down there, and I always put in there no marijuana smoking, no growing of it and anything. And I don't know what I'm going to do now. Thank God I got tenants that aren't going to push it on that. But I think I'm going to sell out as they become empty, because I just don't want to have to deal with all this. I was burglarized at my place up in the hills there, and I had a coin collection that was worth quite a bit of money in a safe, and it was broke into. And, it's just created all kinds of problems. So I don't think it's worth what they think all the boon of the revenue. You're going to have, like I say, 10 times as many problems as you are tax money coming in, so you're going to be the worse for it. So we'll just have to wait and see. I think it's proved in Oregon and Washington and Colorado not to be such a good deal, but I don't know how you're going to enforce the federal law. You haven't got enough jails to put everybody in, and I'm not in favor of necessarily throwing people in jail, but I think as long as you keep your guard up and say we're not going to put up with this, at least you keep it down to a manageable level, which was the case in California for a number of years, but now it's totally out of hand.
Tom, take care.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Tom the Republican. The reason why we say that, sometimes Tom says things and people think he's not a Republican. If you're just tuning in, this was the Happy New Year on CNN. the other night where you had a reporter describing, helping a guy smoke a bong with a gas mask.
Gas mask with me so I wouldn't, get that contact high. But look at what's on the other end of the gas mask. Yes, a bong. And of course, they couldn't stand to see a bong that didn't have any cannabis in it. So you actually put it in the bong, you filled it up.
Yeah.
And you packed it. Okay, so you're going to, now what? Now you're going to celebrate a little New Year's early or what?
Honest with you, I've never hit one.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't think this is really what a gas mask is used for, but wow. Okay. This is New Year's Eve Denver
This
style.
is legal
everybody.
in Colorado. I know.
Oh boy.
I'm moving to
It's
Colorado.
legal. It is very legal. Wow. But
So-
we are making our.
There we have it. There we have it. And you can't tell me that they're not promoting legalized marijuana. Let's go to Tea Party Bob, who joins us now at KIDO Talk Radio. Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, Mr. Miller. Just wanted to check in with you this morning and see if you had any interesting New Year's resolutions.
Psh, none that I can share on the radio.
Oh, okay. Well, what about, weight loss and eating right and all that good stuff?
Sure.
Well, there you go.
If I wanted to say
Yeah,
that, I probably would have said that initially. But that's why you're that's why you're not a member of the Idaho Press Club, is because you ask the tough, hard-hitting questions.
Well, we have to pull these things out of people every once in a while, to get them to admit that they really are on the right track, right?
Right.
As far as your last guest is concerned, he's just one more person who is full of misinformation and needs to do some homework. He would be more concerned about getting medicinal marijuana legalized in Idaho if he had a loved one with epilepsy, which can be helped greatly with this medicinal marijuana. I get so tired of listening to people who just don't have any information whatsoever about what this drug can do to help people. And I don't think he has a clue. So I'm going to be out there fighting for this and to get it here legalized in Idaho this year. And I think that most people who have anyone who is ill with any of these conditions that can be helped are going to be doing the same thing.
So
I'm
wait a
looking
minute,
for
you're
an
trying to get
exciting
what are you trying to get legal?
medicinal marijuana for medical purposes. We've been trying to do it for 3 years. And there's a new bill coming up, by the way.
Okay, I was trying to have a conversation, but you go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You're passionate.
No, go ahead.
I can't fault you for. I only wish you'd call in the 6 o'clock hour. That'd get people fired up.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's the new day, and I'm just getting started.
Sure. So here you have it. About a dozen people came out to the Capitol yesterday, not to ring in the new year, but to protest. It was the third annual Smokeout. It's funny. You can have thousands of people show up for pro-guns, but you have less than 12 show up for medical, or not medical marijuana, but for marijuana, and they cover this. Here you have it.
Well,
they want to get marijuana on the 2020 ballot.
I don't think marijuana is a good thing. I don't think we know how to control it, but we certainly could do it for medicinal purposes. There's too many people that need the help. We know at least 1,500 with epileptic problems here in Idaho. That's 1,500 people we could reduce their pain and help their symptoms. The fact that Governor Otter vetoed that last bill was a real shame. And again, he's full of misinformation, but he's also with the drug companies who are trying to sell same types of drugs, but at much, much higher prices that people are not going to be able to afford. And that limits the amount of people that are going to be able to use this. So if you have the right controls and people can only buy it with licenses, I think you can do this properly.
Right.
We're looking for a very exciting year politically here. And I will tell you that I am going to be working hard to try to help people running for office that are on the conservative side of this. I think there are enough of them out there now that we actually may get this through and we can make it veto-proof. I'm tired.
Wouldn't the conservative side be to continue on with the prohibition against marijuana?
against marijuana itself, but not against medicinal marijuana. They're two very, very different things.
All right.
And I don't think most people understand the value of using things like this to help people who are ill. You know, they're even using it in cancer research now, but most people don't even understand that. And as you know, I'm very involved in the alternative ways of helping people in medicine. And what we're looking at here is an opportunity to change what we do here in this state and to help people who actually do need help. So, like I said, I get tired of people with misinformation, and they really need to start doing some reading.
All right, Tea Party Bob, you can read the Gem State Patriot, gemstatepatriot.com. Thank you.
Have yourself a great day, Kevin, and God bless you for the new year.
God bless you, my friend. Sounds like bye-bye. Sounds like Tea Party Bob's going to have a busy year. More of your calls next with me, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And let's get back to your phone calls. We go to Mark in Eagle. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Hey, Happy New Year. Hey, first off, a little thing on that CNN deal. I saw that, heard that. You know, it's just a further indication of the degenerative state of the far-left media complex in this country. I want to bring, again, attention, which I brought up already, the EPA with the state of Idaho back on November 27th this year. And all you Californians, Oregonians, and Washingtoners that came here to live here and buy those homes out in Eagle, Meridian, whatever, out here in the valley, you better pay real close attention. I advise you to go to CAIA's website, CAIA, Citizens Allied for Integrity and Accountability, because Idaho is going to transfer, with the blessings of the state and the Idaho Department of Water Resources, to the EPA, the ability to monitor Class 2 injection wells here in the state. That is fracking, folks, here. And you know what? We have inversions right now going on this time of the year. We've heard it on our weather forecast today. What do you think will happen when you have those inversions and you've got these wells that are being put in that will eventually go in Eagle off Linder Road right next to a subdivision? And that is no joke, folks. It is for real. And you can go to the website and check this out. And you have poisonous, toxic gases that are emitted from these wells that are going to float around in the valley, and they won't be released into the air. They'll stay close to the ground because of the cold air inversion. How do you think that's going to affect your health, folks? I mean, people really need to go and check the website out. I can tell you that Banner Bank, this coming Monday from 2, and they do it at a convenient time for everybody, on a work day from 2 to 5, it's a public hearing at Banner Bank at 950 West Bannock Street, and it's open to the public to make comment upon this. Now, people like, I wish, Kevin, you would get, because I like to put him on the spot, and that is Mr. Mike Moyle, the head of the Republican state legislature here, who totally lied to me when I've been at meetings with our former mayor, Jim Reynolds, here in Eagle, and some of the highest officials, including Rick Izaguirre, some of our state officials from the Department of Education, the mayor of Star, and other high officials here within the state who would not listen to me when I presented this stuff to them and the effects that it would have on our environment. Totally blew me off. But one thing gave it away. Paul Muntz apparently had been to one of these meetings, and I heard them slam Tom Muntz, and that kind of gave me an idea that I was not going to be able to get the word out on what this fracking, which good old Mike Moyle said was not going to happen here, along with Mr. environmental-friendly Idaho statesman Rocky Barker, who said the same line words to me. They weren't going to do it. Well, yes, sir, they are going to do it here. So I want to bring everybody's attention. Go to CAIA's website, folks, CAIA, again, Citizens Allied for Accountability or Integrity and Accountability, and look to see what they have posted. You better pay attention, because all you who live in subdivisions out there, you will be affected here in Ada County as well as Canyon County to the west of us here. And I'll get off my little pedestal. Sorry, Kevin. I'll let you have a word.
No, it's very important. I mean, I wish Alma hadn't, gone crazy, and we'd have her on all the time. We were on this from the beginning.
There was a dispute between her and Shelley Brock. I've talked to them both, so they're going to both do it their own way. Shelley is still continuing with CAIA, and I'm trying to get her to get on air because I'm a little surprised that the group, needs to get this out to the public through all the news sources available at hand, including this great station. So you have a happy new year, and people go to that website. I advise you to do it ASAP because time is short. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. Quickly to traffic and weather. And let's go to Garden City and Max at KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you. I'm calling mostly about Tea Party Bob's insistence on medical marijuana. And this message is to you, Tea Party Bob, and many other people. I have not, as a physician, I have not seen the benefit, even when we had a limited time we were allowed to try it. I have not read one single bona fide study, be it double-blind or single-blind, that shows that marijuana has any medical use other than numbing the pain. People are quoting studies everywhere. Not a one of them is a bona fide supervised study.
Good point, Max. Thank you for calling. Ray, great job. God bless and keep the faith.